Oh, Jesus f***ing howdy, guys. Learn to knock next time, would you? I've just been taking a little break from the Wii series after last time. So instead, I'm playing everyone's favorite Paper Mario, totally of my own free will. Alright, fine, I'm lying. Damn, I knew I couldn't keep that ruse up for long. Actually, I've been mentally preparing myself for this very moment. That's right, the day we finally finish the Wii series. We've come a long way from basic tech demos to fully fledged sequels and bare-to-the-bones marketing, but this time things are different. Every game we've seen so far were made to show off one of the Wii's various peripherals. However, now, Nintendo were making these games because of this.
What? It's your average copy of Wii Sports, right? Maybe the top of the case is a little singed because the eBay seller you got it from is into some weird shit, but otherwise it's what you'd expect. Well, of course, I'm not talking about that specifically. I'm talking about the game itself and what it did for Nintendo. I've said many times that Wii Sports sold insanely well, making it not only one of the best-selling games on the Wii, but of all time. Obviously, they would have to act on the potential profits this would make them, so they would do many things to cash in on the new Wii series. First, they would make various other games similar to Wii Sports, each being their own different minigame compilations, but adding new peripherals to go along with them. Secondly, they would make direct sequels to some of the more popular games, both to rake in on the potential profits there, but also to improve on the previous games. But there is one more thing they did that I have yet to mention. They would take the Wii series beyond just basic minigame compilations, delving into completely new game genres. Basically, they're not tech demos anymore. They were clearly trying to cash in as hard as possible. Like, do you really think a game like Wii Chess was made from love? No, I say. But I'm mostly talking about the two most notable games in this niche category, Wii Party and Wii Music. Throughout this series, I would usually talk about my personal connection to some of these games, but not today. I've never played any of these games before, so I don't really have any nostalgic connection to them. That means we're finally trenching forth into the more obscure side of the Wii series, the side I never got to see. That's a thought that both fascinates and terrifies me, so let's not dawdle and begin with our first game, Wii Party. Well, technically that came out before Wii Music, but trust me, you'll be thanking me once this is over. In the meantime, we can discuss its development. Wii Party was developed by ND Cube, a subsidiary of Nintendo that, around this time, was made up of various ex-employees of Hudson Soft, who had been the team behind the Mario Party series. Obviously, with party games being their forte, they began development on a new party game starring Mii's. Basically, they would take the Mario Party formula and mix in a little bit of Mii's and different party modes to shake up the experience a bit. The game would then be announced at E3 2010, which you'd think would be a momentous occasion, but this is also the same presentation that first announced the 3DS, so who cares? Regardless, the game came out in Japan on July 8th, 2010, North America on October 3rd, Australia on October 7th, and in Europe the next day. First impressions with the box art are looking great. We're finally rid of those damn screenshots. Sure, it's just in-game renders, but they still look really nice, especially that logo. Wait, hold up. It's the Party of the Year?
That's an opportunity I can't possibly pass up. Let's just start now. What? How did it sell? It sold well. The end. Like I said, this is my first time playing any of these games, so let's just hope my incoming stroke isn't fatal. Nope, it's wild.
Wii Party is, well, obviously a motion control-based party game. However, it's not as straightforward as something like Mario Party, where that has maybe 1 to 3 different modes to choose from. Wii Party has at least a dozen to choose from. There's your basic Mario Party style games, but there's also various smaller offerings spanning many different types of party games. But before we get into any of that, let me introduce you to Party Phil. This egg guy is your host, I guess. You can immediately start to see how different this is from any other Wii series game just by this alone. Like, I don't get it. Why not use a Mii or at least something that isn't a fucking egg guy? I think it's trying to be like the balance board from Wii Fit, but at least that didn't have eyes. He spouts some trash about how much there is to do in Wii Party and thrusts us into the main menu. Like I said, there's a lot here, but let's just take it one at a time and enter our first set of games, the party games. These are the more basic and familiar offerings you'd expect out of a party game, but why explain it when I can just start? Board Game Island is our first game and,
Alright, this is a party game, and I can't commit the biggest sin in party gaming history, playing by yourself. And if I want to host Party of the Year, then I'm gonna need some help, and I think I know just who to call. Also, well, looks like I'm gonna need to delve into a forgotten part of my past, something that needs a lot more recognition. I don't usually resort to this kind of thing, but it's for Party of the Year, damn it, and moral ambiguity is not invited. The first step in resurrecting the souls of your very pissed off friends is to make a sacrifice. Next, I begin the incantation. Oh, rulers of Sonic fan hell, please forgive my friend for his terrible taste in platformers and see to it that his presence may be restored to this realm once more. Alright, I then need to aggravate the spirit. Well, howdy day. It's my recently deceased friend Colton from the KGR.7.
Hey!
Do you mind? I was introducing you.
I don't care. You left me to die.
Oh, right. Well, to be fair, it took me a couple months to even realize it, so you should really cut me some slack.
Cut you some slack? How about the guy you killed?
Involuntary manslaughter at best. And besides, there's a much more important reason I called you here.
What would that be?
I'm trying to host Party of the Year, and I have no one to play Wii Party with. Do you have any idea how hard that is for me?
So you're telling me you resurrected me after letting me die and sending me to the underworld, all just to play some shitty Mario Party clone with me?
Hey! Dead or not, I will not let you slander these national treasures.
Do you have any idea how much dying hurts?
Not nearly as much as it hurts to see your favorite franchise die due to oversaturation and mediocrity, so stop being a little bitch and fulfill your ghostly duties.
Holy shit, you are a terrible person.
You mean martyr.
There, finally. Like I said, Board Game Island is the most notable part of Wii Party and is what everyone probably associates it with. It's basically just Mario Party. You take turns rolling a die to progress, and you play a minigame every turn. Ah yes, the minigames. It took us a while to get there, but like any other Wii Series game, Wii Party is full of different minigames that you can play throughout many of the different party modes. Usually I'd skim through them, but hell no, there are over 80 minigames, which is a lot even for a party game. So instead, I'll just mention the ones I think are most notable. There are various types of minigames you play every turn, and depending on what place you take, you get a special die. You got 4-player, 1v1, and 1v3 games. There's also the pair and challenge games, but I'll talk about those later. You got some basic ones like Smile, Snap, Shifty Gifts, and Chop Chops. I like the more competitive games like Chin Up Champs, Spotlight Fight, and Back Attack. Jesus Christ, there's way too much alliteration for me. However, I absolutely abhor any of the minigames based on luck. It can completely throw off your game depending on what mode you're playing. And like, I get that's the whole point, but do that in a chance space or something. Don't waste my time. Honestly though, I have a lot of fun with most of these games, and given how many there are, I'd say that's very commendable. Back to the main board itself, there are various special spaces you can land on. Some launch you into a minigame, activate various events, or the basic bitch spaces that move you forward or backwards. There's also these kinda neat places on the board called Challenge Time, where you basically have to roll a certain number to proceed. I think they can change up your positions, but in a more fair way than the luck minigames. Some don't do much, but then there's the volcano. Yeah, up on the wrong space and you get sent there. Again, it's just another way to slow down your game, but damn does it look cool. The game usually lasts about an hour until someone finally reaches the top, where they have to roll a 6 to punch the shit out of this statue to reap all of the golden treasury rewards. Ha, great joke.
Well, that was short, but fun. It really goes to show Nintendo made all those casual gamers. Let's be going now.
Hey, wait a minute. That was only the first mode. We still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 modes to go.
Hell is somehow more fun than this.
The next party mode is Globetrot. Now, while I enjoyed Board Game Island a lot, I think this is where Wii Party sets itself apart. You travel around a globe, moving with these cards you can collect. The main goal is to visit various hotspots and using coins to purchase items from these spots. This time around, the reward for beating a minigame are the coins, which you can use to either buy hotspot items or purchase special vehicle cards you can use to travel farther. You also got other special spaces like the airport and odd job spaces that can either travel or help you get more coins. It's basic once you get it down, but I find it to be the most fun. There's no clear path as to who's gonna win, as you can travel anywhere you want. I also just really like the way it looks. I knew what they were doing as soon as I saw it. Those cheeky bastards bastards were referencing the forecast channel. They thought they could slide that by me, but no, my powers of observation will never be matched. I think the way you progress and the different mechanics are not only really fun to play, but actually shake up the game a lot and can help stand apart from everything. I mean, honestly, doing anything original in a party game is worth props alone. After this game, son of a bitch, we have another original game, Swap Meet. It's basically a color-based puzzle game, but separated by mini-games. Each player has 2 rows of Miis, and they have to swap between Miis in order to get them to match their colors. Some colors are worth more points, and there's also special Miis that can do special things like clear a row or become any color. The more colors you match, the more points you earn, and whoever has the most points wins. The mini-games are only played for position in this game, which kinda sucks, but I get it. It's honestly a nice mode to play if you're a little tired from the others, but it doesn't have a whole lot to offer. Luckily though, Spin-Off has much more content. It's basically Wheel of Fortune, where you spin this giant wheel, but instead of filling in letters or whatever the f you do in Wheel of Fortune, you earn medals that fill up a bank. Each player takes a turn spinning it, and there are various spaces you can land on that either give you more medals, fill up the bank, and of course, the bank battle space, which is where the mini games are played. If you win, you get all the medals in the bank. Whoever has the most wins. Again, it's pretty basic, but just as fun as Swap Meet. Our final party mode is Bingo. It's bingo, bingo, and mini games, but also bingo.
Now I bet this is where most Wii Series games would end. They never usually have too much content, but what's here is still really fun to play. Wii Party already stands out for most of the other Wii Series games in its presentation, but it also stands out in its amount of content, and nowhere is that more obvious than the pair games you play exclusively with a friend.
What?
Well, technically you can play them by yourself, but you know, being an abomination to all party game kind and everything. So they're basically cooperative games that you play with a friend. The first one is Friend Connection, which is essentially a basic quiz where you try to answer the same questions about your friend's interests to see how compatible you are. Afterwards, you are both put to the test in one of the many pair mini games. It's an entire genre of mini games exclusive to this mode that you play in cooperation with a friend. Like take Robot Factory for instance, you both have to put together as many robots as you can. That's how most of these games work, various different cooperative games that are mostly puzzles, but some others that I find to be nice with a friend. In this game, how well you do in the minigames help determine how compatible you are.
I knew it! You hate me because I like math!
Now, Friend Connection makes sense for a pair game since it has you directly interacting with one another, but the last two, don't. Balance Boat has you play pair mini games, and if you win, you get 2 Miis to balance on a boat. Lose, and you have to balance Miis with different sizes, making it more difficult. It's fine, I guess, but it just has no substance. It just sounds like they took a regular mini game and stretched it out by half an hour. The last one, Matchup, is that too. You try to match Miis of the same color in a mini game every turn to determine who goes first, most points wins. Lame. I like Friend Connection as a smaller side game, but lumping it with these other pretty minuscule games into its own mode just feels really cheap.
But if you want cheap, then let me introduce you to the quintessentially cheapest mode, House Party.
I had absolutely no idea what to expect from a mode with a name as generic as House Party, which is pretty fitting considering it's a collection of very loosely connected mini-games based around the Wii Remote. It's a little hard to explain, but they're basically like mini tech demos for each of the Wii Remote's features. It's confusing. The first game is Animal Tracker. Now, what does that adventure entail? You place 2 Wii Remotes down on a flat surface, an animal sound plays on the TV, and you have to grab the remote that makes the same sound. That's all you do, and it takes about as long as it takes for me to finish this sentence. Hide and Hunt is somehow even more basic. One guy hides the Wii Remotes around the room and you have to find them. Third sentence to finish the paragraph.
Alright, who's hiding them?
I'll do it.
Okay.
Is this?
You know, I'm not usually rude to the host when I'm a guest at their house.
Oh, alright, next we have Time Bomb. You take turns handing over the Wii Remote to your friend while making sure you're holding down a certain button. It's got a little more to it than the other games, but it's still really boring. Word Bomb is, oh come on! Word Bomb is kind of the same thing, but you have to say words of a certain category before handing the Wii Remote over. But since the Wii Remote obviously can't hear you, it works directly on the honor system. Fantastic. Lastly, we have the Buddy Quiz. It's still not too much, but it's still a little bit more interesting. It's almost exactly like Friend Connection, but you play with 3 people and there's no minigame. Fantabulous. All in all, the house party mode sucks. I thought the pair minigames were excessive, but good lord, is this ever fodder? But I can't knock the entire game for this until we move on to our final mode, the minigames. Yes, Wii Party also has several different minigame modes. Free play just lets you play every minigame whenever you want, which is really handy and actually a great addition. Battle has you play against other people in a minigame only mode where the goal is to win however minigames you select. It's a nice break from the main party modes that I actually recommend if you don't have a whole lot of time. Solo is what it sounds like. You play by yourself and have to clear this linear path by playing different minigames. Again, a fine mode if you're playing by yourself. I'd still watch your back though, traitor! Next, we have one of my favorite side modes in the game, Challenge Mode. It's comprised of some harder versions of existing minigames that turn them more so into endurance rounds trying to last as long as you can. However, there are also minigames that are exclusive to this mode. One of these, Marching Orders, has you directing Miis into houses of various colors, which can get pretty hard as it goes on. Garden Gridlock is also pretty fun. You basically move these wind-up Miis along different paths to lead them to these potted plants. Don't worry, I'll forgive them for flagrantly ripping off Mario vs. Donkey Kong. Last but not least, we have About Face, which I swear is a translation error, but who am I to say?
Someone who speaks English.
It's this basic puzzle game where you have to line up Mii faces of the same color together. I'm not good at it, so I hate it! Honestly, the minigames mode is pretty welcome to me. If this was the only side mode, that would more than suffice. Even spot the sneak. And frankly, that's how I feel about Wii Party. Have you ever heard of there being too much content? I know that's incredibly ironic considering one of my main gripes with this series is that there's usually not enough content, but this proves there is such a thing as too much. It's totally cool if you happen to like any of the other modes, but in my opinion, it really wasn't necessary at all. The main party modes more than suffice. They're all really fun modes that combine various different types of party games into a collection that I really enjoy, and the minigames mode accents that perfectly. Everything else is a pointless distraction at best, and they were really reaching with that house party mode. However, all in all, I still surprisingly enjoyed this game. It doesn't have any of that classic Wii series charm, but honestly, that's been gone for a while. Still though, Wii Party was so good that I nearly forgot about that, and I think that's a testament to its quality.
You know what? I'm warming up to this. I'd say this is part of your material.
Really?
No, get me the hell out of here.
Well, I don't exactly know how to do that.
What?
Look, man, it's quite simple. I only turn to religious magic when it benefits me, so I don't really know all the ins and outs yet.
Well then, figure it out!
Hell no, man. I already got enough on my plate as it is. I can't have a guilty conscience on top of that.
Can I at least stay?
Unfortunately, this is a single man's affair. Get out.
What the f*** am I supposed to do? I'm a f***ing ghost!
I don't know. Don't you have a grieving family somewhere?
You know what? Fine. F*** you, f*** your stupid party, and f*** your stupid Mario Galaxy 2!
I didn't even bring that up, but that still hurt. Well, that was fruitful and a fun way to experience a great game, but now is when things get serious. We're about to delve into the most infamous point in the entire Wii series, a point that involves a game that people say wasn't very good.
Wii Music is cited by many people as the worst game in the entire Wii series. I've heard next to nothing about the game itself, other than it's supposedly awful and a waste of money. However, I don't know if that can be true. I mean, the worst I've seen is just plain mediocre, but never actually full-on bad. Let's just pretend, hypothetically, that I'm about to play the worst game in history, but how can Nintendo mess up that badly? Let's figure that out step by step by discussing its development. Wii Music's origins date back around the same time as Wii Sports and Wii Play. According to Shigeru Miyamoto, some of the concepts they had for Wii games were sports and fitness, but a music game was also considered. It was worked on a lot actually because it was then demoed at the 2005 Tokyo Game Show. It's not too important because the demos shown off there would also be shown at E3 2006, a very popular topic in this series as it turns out. I think I've mentioned in just about every episode now that there were various demos shown off to test the Wii's motion controls. I've also mentioned how most of these games were either put into or would inspire various games in the Wii series like Wii Sports, Wii Play, and Wii Fit. However, there were a few other demos I have yet to mention. One of these was a simple drum game where you play a drum set just by using a Wii Remote and nunchuck. Pretty simple concept. The other demo was Wii Music Orchestra, which was also shown at the press conference. Miyamoto comes on stage in conductor attire, leading a band of Miis to the Legend of Zelda theme. It's pretty basic, just wave the Wii Remote along to the tempo of a song to lead the orchestra. They're honestly some of the more basic demos of the bunch, so some refining would obviously be needed. The game wouldn't be seen again until October 2007 during a press conference hosted by Satoru Iwata. By now it became much more focused on playing music, but that's for later. The game would again remain unseen until E3 2008 and possibly one of the most infamous moments in E3 history. I bet you have no idea what I'm talking about. That is until you see this one frame. And now you immediately know what I'm talking about. That's right, the famous "this doofus playing drums" gif came from a Wii Music demo. It seems that it perfectly predicts the quality of the game, not just from how goofy this guy looks, but from the look of horror on your face when you realize that he's a professional drummer and yet this is the best he can do. But as if it couldn't get any better, it's followed by Shigeru Miyamoto awkwardly waltzing onto stage while pretending to play a saxophone. He and Bill Trennan give a basic rundown of the game's controls while no one claps before they invite Cami Dunaway's book club on stage to play an incredibly janked version of the original Super Mario Bros. Theme while the audience just watches. Either in contempt or pure fear, what matters is that no one was particularly hyped for this game, to say the very least. Oh well, the game still came out in Japan on October 16th, 2008, North America on October 20th, Australia on November 13th, and finally Europe the very next day. Again, the box arts are looking pretty funky fresh with this stupidly shiny rainbow effect that reminds me of something right out of Teen Vogue, but it can never beat that neat scratchy disc that Endless Ocean had.
Alright, no point delaying this any further. Let's dive into Wii Music. Come on, people, how hard is it? Title screens.
So this is our other egg-headed host, Sebastian Toot, supposedly a master of music and the works. He's here to help us learn the basics of playing instruments in Wii Music. And almost instantly, I can tell why people didn't like this game.
I am immersed in the world of sound.
Yeah, so quick question, how do you strum a guitar? By swinging the Wii Remote. Great, and playing a piano? Swinging the Wii Remote. Playing a trumpet? Now that's a tricky one, you actually have to press a single button. Now look, I get it, they're just applying the same Wii Series formula again, you know, simple, easy to pick up and play controls that anyone can use with ease. Well, you'll see later how all of that completely falls apart, but even now, it's pretty obvious that philosophy doesn't apply to music. Like, you know, changing notes, the game just does that on its own, so if you were actually planning on making your own music, that's completely impossible. But now we enter our first jam session. We're given the daunting task of playing the controversial hit, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. We play in an actual band and are given an actual prompt of when to hit the notes. But then there's the most pressing issue, motion controls. Pre-motion plus motion controls, actually. In short, they suck. They're the same basic move slightly to the right to register movement controls that, like I mentioned before, work best whenever you're making the most basic movements possible. And while throwing a ball is pretty basic, playing an instrument is not. As such, you get various instances whenever you try to play a note, and it doubles or just play a note without you doing anything. If you're trying to follow the notes that they give you, it can be really hard to play them in sync. Many of the instruments are meant to be played with the nunchuck as well, but they're not required. Adding all that together gives us an awful mix of simplistic controls that are also way too complicated to understand. So, if it already fails at what the Wii Series is most known for, then the rest of this should be a hoot and a half. After our first jam session, we come across yet another issue this game has. In most rhythm games, you're rated on your performance after a song, but in Wii Music, you rate your own songs. I think I get what they're trying to do here, since they let you do whatever you want in the songs. They can't actually measure how well you do, but then why even have it there? It just kind of defeats the entire purpose of a rating system. But alright, fine, that's cool. We make our first album cover and watch our masterpiece unfold before our eyes. But now, finally, we're let into the main game. Man, remember Wii Sports? How you could start up the game and almost instantly have access to everything? It almost feels like that was 2 years ago. There are 4 main modes to choose from. Jam jam, what we just did, videos, lessons, and games. The jam mode has a few small modes of its own. Instrument improv is where you can test out the various instruments that Wii Music has to offer with a simple backing track. There are plenty of normal instruments that you'd expect, like brass, percussion, woodwinds, the works. But in Wii Series fashion, there's also more outlandish instruments. You got those weird percussion instruments that your band teacher would always hide in a drawer somewhere. But you also have these other silly ones like the dog and cat suits, which are just so wacky. The rapper, the cheerleader, the karate guy, they're all pretty nice additions that sound really good. My favorite one has to be the NES horn. It basically mimics the same sound channels you heard on a real NES back in the day. It's one of the few ones here that I actually find really neat. But what better way to use an instrument than to play music? Well, now we can talk about the jam sessions, more specifically the different songs. There's the quick jam mode, which sets you up with a random song, location, and instrument to play, which is fine, but the real meat and potatoes is in the custom jam. Once you've unlocked everything, you get to choose from different instruments, songs, and stages however you want. You can also choose which part of the song you'd like to play, like the harmony, the bass, percussion, what have you. It allows you to have a lot more customization in your songs. The songs you can choose from, though, fall pretty short. Wii Music has 50 different songs you can choose from, but that number is somewhat misleading. I mean, if you call most of the songs being nursery rhymes, folk songs from the 1800s, and/or stupid generic Nintendo music you've probably heard 50 times misleading, then maybe. Seriously though, it seems they really copped out on actually getting licensed music. There are some, 13 to be exact. You got some pretty good classics like Every Breath You Take, Material Girl, and September, all pretty good picks, but they definitely missed out not getting any songs that were more recent or even from the current century. That doesn't affect me too much, but it's delightfully jarring hearing these songs in that weird disjointed style Wii Music has. The Nintendo songs are also pretty okay. It's weird how they only got 7 considering, you know, they made them, but whatever, what we have is still alright. One of my favorite parts of Custom Jam is what Sebastian himself calls overdubs. Basically, you can play a part in the song, then after you finish, you can go back and play a different part of the song while still having your old part saved. This means that you can make full ensembles of Miis entirely controlled by you. Afterwards, you can save your videos to be viewed in the videos section where you can view them and even send them to friends over Wii Connect 24. For the love of God, don't try it, just take my word for it. But come on, any game that lets me play Wake Me Up Before You Go Go with a rapper, galactic horn, and a jaw harp should instantly be considered a classic, right? But again, that all comes with a very major caveat. When you first start, you only get 5 songs to mess with. Now, how do you unlock the other 45? Well, that answer lies in the other 2 modes, lessons and games. Basically, you can unlock new songs and instruments by completing each of the smaller mini-games that are included. And shazam! Only 4 paragraphs in and we finally find them. The first game is Me Maestro, and if that looks familiar, that's because it is a carbon copy of the Wii Orchestra demo from E3 2006. And when I say carbon copy, I'm serious, not just graphically, but in functions entirely the same. You still conduct the band with the tempo of the song matching the swing of your Wii remote. The only goal is to keep a smooth and steady tempo in order to get a higher score. Otherwise, it's really f***ing boring. There's a total of 5 songs, something the game doesn't mind telling you. Literally, the only fun I have is making the song really fast and watching the violinist spaz out a solo. The next game is Handbell Harmony. You play in a role in a 4-part handbell group, something I'd see at like church or something. It's more like your basic rhythm game where you have to play your bells at the right time. At first, it's super basic and almost not even worth talking about, but I realized shortly after starting that you can actually ramp up the difficulty in the settings menu they never tell you about. Cool, it's like a scavenger hunt game where you have to find the fun. The final game is Pitch Perfect. It's basically a bunch of levels where you play a fun series of music quizzes, and by fun I mean monotonous. Sorry, I always get those mixed up. They usually involve things like matching sounds with the given ones, arranging a melody that matches, or picking the most fitting melody. It really reminds me of one of the really boring games from Wii Play. It just goes on forever until you beat all the levels, and it is such a chore. Another holdover from E3 2006 is the drum mode. It doesn't help you unlock anything, but it's worth mentioning because it's also not good. You're given this first-person perspective and letting you go ham on any of the game's drums. The main problem I have comes whenever you do anything but. In order to switch drums, you have to hold down on either the D-pad or the stick on the nunchuck, which just feels so gross. It feels like the game's forcing you to act like a toddler and match the drums. As someone who's played on a real drum set many times, I cannot play a single cadence correctly. This whole mess is really starting to add up now. You can also play in jam sessions in drum random mode, which is the same thing but with the different controls. So it's really a pick your poison type situation. Would you rather have basic as white bread controls that feel like shit, or much more immersive controls that also feel like shit?
It's so hard to choose.
But even after all of that, we've only unlocked a fraction of the instruments and songs you can use in the game. The rest of it can all be unlocked in the most infamous part of Wii Music, the Lessons mode. Just the idea of there being a mode that instructs you on the more complicated parts of this seemingly simple to pick up and play music game really goes to show how they had no real vision for this game. Like, if it were simple, why would you need to learn anything? But that complaint is honestly really minor in comparison to the bigger issue, how tedious it is. If you go into the Lessons mode first, you're just given the tutorial from the beginning again. Seriously, which one of the developers got retrograde amnesia before working on this? It's ludicrous. But in order to unlock the rest of the lessons, you have to have at least created 4 videos, after which you can finally access the Jam Mastery lessons. These lessons teach you how to play music in various types of style, like techno, Latin, pop, march, and so on. That would be pretty interesting, but it's the same thing over and over again. Since most of the instruments function identical to one another, one style isn't gonna really feel different from the other, and the process is so long and tedious it will break you down. You slowly, one by one, create each part of the song while having each part excessively detailed with walls of text until you finally finish. You can do one song, that being Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, for each style. You have to do this, and I quote, 11 times. It took me several hours to complete all of it, and it is so boring. They all kind of start to blend together, so it just feels more like 10 hours instead of 3. I realized halfway through that you don't even need to try. You can skip the practice part, and when you actually have to play the song, you can just do nothing the whole time, and the game doesn't even try to stop you. Pro tip, you could probably use that time to sign up for actual trumpet lessons, and you'd still only be halfway done. But whatever, finally I've completed each lesson. Where's my shit? Oh, the icing on the cake comes when you realize that there's still one lesson left. A lesson that can only be unlocked once you've created more music videos with the things you just unlocked. By the time you've finally done that, you're just going through the motions, poorly trying to dub over songs from the 70s with cat noises, and it's all just a blur by now. The final lesson is known as Expand Your Style. I think it's like changing tones and styles mid-song, but honestly, who cares? We only have to do one more song before we finally unlock the rest of the content, and now, this is when the game gets alright. We can now play through dozens of different songs with various combinations of crazy instruments, and I actually had a lot of fun making music videos. It didn't feel forced, and it's like this is how the game was meant to be played, but Christ, the grueling journey it is to get to this point is honestly not even worth it. I had at most maybe 3 hours of enjoyment before I got bored again, and that's all because there's not a whole lot to mess with here. I get it was probably hard to get licenses for the songs in this game, but what about the Nintendo tracks? There were barely any in here, and it wouldn't have been that hard to add them in, but they didn't even have to do that. Something I've heard many people say would help is a music creation mode. Just think about it. The game already incentivizes you to create your own version of the song, not having to follow it exactly. Why not go one step further and just make your own songs? It's not like they haven't done that in the past. Mario Paint on the Super Nintendo was a paint program, and it's still at a music creation tool that many people find incredible even today. It would have been a great selling point, and it may be even a better thing to show off to millions of people, but don't take my word for it, because people are already doing that. Just take a look at the Wii Music modding community, which I assure you is a real thing. They basically mod the game to include any song they want, and it's incredible the things people make. That alone should be proof of the potential it could have had, but who knows, it might have been there at some point, but what matters is it's not there, and what is here is incredibly disappointing. Wii Music is definitely a good example of the whole trying to apply the Wii Series formula to everything thing Nintendo was doing. The game can be fun, but the process of getting it all to work is incredibly tedious and wasn't really necessary. However, even if that wasn't a problem, the idea just doesn't even work that well. Music isn't the kind of thing you can simplify in this way, especially with wishy-washy motion controls. It's not nearly as bad as everyone makes it out to be, but that probably means they didn't make it that far. Is it a bad game? No, but it's also not very good even when you get to the fun part, which sucks. Regardless, this game would make people lose faith in the Wii series and that they couldn't keep this up for long. long. So they made Wii Sports Resort. Damn, talk about a comeback.
And that, for better or worse, ends our journey. I know we flip-flopped there for a while, but we've officially caught up. Nintendo created a simple tech demo that accidentally became a cultural phenomenon overnight. Then, realizing their mistake, they made some decent and not so decent sequels to those games, which leads us to now. Nintendo would never dare touch the Wii Series ever again, since as we all know, Wii Play Motion was the last Wii Series game released on the Wii. Man, the last Wii Series game released on the Wii. The last Wii Series game released on the Wii. Released on the Wii. Released on the fuck. Buckle up, guys, because things are about to get really fucking mediocre.